Hi, I'm Carol DenHartog at Amazing Business Results, and today we're going to talk about assessments inside of Zoho Recruit. So, an assessment is something that you can use for pre-screening for candidates. You can use it in the interview process. There's a few different areas that you can use it in, but the idea is to have preset questions that you can use to ask the candidate in order to qualify them for the position. Specifically, what I want to show you today is how to use it in the pre-screening process, because the assessment can actually score itself and then qualify or not qualify the candidate based on their responses. So the first thing we're going to do is click on assessments. If you don't see it at the top here, then click on these three dots and it'll be listed here. So we'll go to that module. Once you go there, you'll see all of the assessments that you already have. Of course, Zoho will have some that are already set up for you, but you can also create your own. So if we click on the plus button over here on the right, then it'll ask us what type of assessment we want to create. So there's a candidate assessment, there's a recruiter's assessment, or an interviewer assessment. So the recruiter and the interview assessment is going to be filled out by the recruiter or the interviewer, and the candidate assessment is going to actually be filled out by the candidate on their own. So this is the one we're choosing for the purpose of a pre-screen. So here we'll give it a name. So typically I just name it the name of the position it's for. So we'll call it virtual assistant. It'll ask the type. So this is where you'll give what kind of screening it is. So we're going to choose pre-screening. And then here we have our questionnaire. So first it's going to ask you for a competency. The competency is going to be, what are you trying to gauge based on the questions in this section? So for example, if it's for a virtual assistant, their eye for detail maybe, or scheduling. So it's going to be a certain skill that you are trying to gauge based on the questions in that area. So you would give it a competency title. And then here we will add a question. So you can just type the question in here, but what I like to do is hover over it and click on this gear icon. And then we'll click edit properties, because this gives us more options. So on question type, there are different types of questions we can have, and this part's very important. If we're using the subjective section, so if we're using single line or paragraph, you will actually have to review this assessment on your own and determine if this person is qualified or not, because the system's not going to read a paragraph for you and be able to determine if that's the right answer to the question you are looking for. However, if we use the objective field, so radio, multi-select, drop down, yes, no, all of these fields we can have a criteria for, and the system can automatically qualify or disqualify the candidate based on their answers. So for example, if we choose drop down, we would add a question here, we would mandate the question, and then we would add some options here and give them weights. So let's say 3 gets 2 points, 2 gets 2 points, and 1 gets 0 points. And then we'll click this qualifier question, and it says unqualify if the weightage is less than or equal to 0. So that means that if my answer is number 1, then I will be disqualified. However, if my answer is 2 or 3, I will be able to continue in the process. I will be qualified. And you can do that for every single question. Now, this is also really cool. We have a multi-select here. So what you can do for multi-select is you can combine 2 answers as the criteria. So we can put here that the weightage is equal or less than 3, then it disqualify them. That means that they have to choose number 2 and 3 as their answer to be qualified, because there are 2 right answers in this situation. So that's also an option. So this is a fun thing to play with. And once you have your assessment set up, what you need to do is go to job openings, go to the position that you're looking for, click on pre-screening assessment on the related list, and then we're going to add the assessment we created. So we'll search for it by going to pre-screening and then click on assessment, click on the one that correlates with this position, and then it'll link those together. So now when you send your pre-screening email template out, it'll automatically grab the correct assessment because they're linked together in the system. So this is something fun to play with. It's very helpful and it'll save you a lot of time. And if you guys run into any issues, if you need help with training or building out your system, feel free to reach out to us at Amazing Business Results and we'll be happy to help you.